And we are live. Welcome to FinLit Live. It's your favorite insurance agents, Darnold Jr. and
Dr. Michelle DeSell, the Wealth Tattletale.
And we have a show for you. If you ever thought about investing, then this is the show to tune into because we're going to cover the basics of different investments. And this guy, he is very knowledgeable in different investing vehicles. So if you know anybody that wants to invest, go ahead and share this with them. If you're watching this live, put hashtag live. If you're watching the replay, go ahead in the chat, type hashtag replay, and let's go ahead and get lit. All right, without any further ado, this is one of my favorite persons in the whole wide world. He has the coolest name too. Dan Ziccarelli. Hey Dan, how's it going?
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Darnold. Hi, Michelle.
How are you today?
I'm doing well so far, thank you.
Good, good. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us. Go ahead and introduce who you are, how long you've been doing it, and where you used to work.
Okay. My name is Dan Ziccarelli. I was with Edward Jones and Sun American Securities for 10 years, and I've been out for a few years now. But I still advise a lot of people on investing and stuff.
Awesome.
Excellent.
So this is a great topic. So many people want to know about how to save money, how to make it grow, how to start investing. And so we have some good people that are wanting to hear this, and we're so glad that you got all the answers, Dan.
Well, some of them.
Well, so one of the things that I definitely want you to do is just kind of give us a brief history about your stint in the business.
Well, what happened was I used to own a Golden Corral steakhouse for 8 years in Arizona.
Okay.
And I didn't know, even though I had a double degree in business,
Mm-hmm.
and I took a lot of finance classes, things of that nature, I really still didn't understand what a stock and a bond, a mutual fund, that kind of thing was. So anyway, when I sold the Golden Corral back to the corporation, one of my guys that was a client, one of the guys who used to come eat there all the time, he actually was an Edward Jones guy. He was always trying to get me to come work with him. And so finally, he put my name in, I guess, and they called me. And I told him, you don't want me. I don't know anything about stocks or bonds or anything like that. And they said, that's okay, we'll teach you. And anyway, one thing led to another, and I spent a lot of time studying. It was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. But I want to be able to teach it to a 10-year-old. And so that's what I do now is, just try to explain it to people in really simplistic terms.
And that's important because it's something that seems like a foreign language to most of us when it comes to investing. So the fact that you can break it down and make people understand it, that's key. So I'm certain that you are a favorite financial advisor.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what it was always. It was always a foreign language to me. And truthfully, when I started, I was really intimidated. I was 33, I think it was, somewhere around there, 34 in that area. And I was really concerned about people that were older than me, like, over my age, 35 or older, because I figured, especially in their 50s and 60s, that they've been investing their whole life. I figured people like me were just as ignorant as I was, probably, so I wasn't too intimidated by them. Well, it turned out that the more I did it, the more I talked to people, I realized they didn't have a clue either. They really didn't know. I mean, they trusted their advisor guy, and they said, I like the guy, I trust him. And I'm thinking, man, so even when I passed the exam to get licensed, my Series 7 in Series 6, I mean, and for the first time in my life, I really felt successful because no matter what happened, I was in control of my own destiny now.
Yeah.
And so that was a big deal, if I never had a single client.
There you go. Yeah, that's a hard test to pass. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So we're focusing on the basics, and that's something that everybody really needs to get a grasp on, the basics of investing, because it's a very intimidating topic.
Absolutely.
And so let's start off with some of the basic things that people need to know, Dan.
Well, first of all, my first question would be to them is I say, when you get paid, whether it's via check or deposit or whatever, what do you do with your money? There's really only two things you do with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of stealing this from Edward Jones terminology stuff. What do you do with your money when you get paid?
Either spend it or you save it.
Exactly. Very good, Darrell. And so if you're spending it, you're obviously buying stuff that you could use or need or whatever.
All right.
If you're saving it, how do you save it? Where do you put it?
Usually in a savings account, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It
And
doesn't
so
draw much interest.
that is the most general term of investing, right? Is in a savings account.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're lucky enough, you might get a quarter of a percent. So you might get interest. A lot of times nowadays in bank accounts and saving accounts, you don't get anything anymore. But that's what you're doing. You're putting it to a bank. And here's the reality. You're lending it to them and you're getting very little back on your return. And what are they doing with that money when you give it to them?
They're investing it.
Yeah. And how are they doing that?
By using your money.
So they're taking your money and they're loaning it out to people to buy cars and homes and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And how much are they charging?
Astronomical.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I mean,
even if it's just 5% for a loan and they're only giving you a quarter of a percent, I mean, that's a huge difference. What a great gig that is, huh? Just being a middleman. But the reality of it is, they do have to pay for the brick and mortar and everything like that, and they have their overhead. And in addition to that, they're really providing great service because a lot of these people wouldn't be able to afford homes or cars without doing that. So it is a good service, but it's a great, most legal way of making a ton of money. That's a great thing.
Start our own bank, huh?
Yeah, no.
But that's the main thing. That's what we do. Now, normally I would put this on a piece of paper, where people could see this. But I tell them to make a T chart, and on the left-hand side, put save, and then the right-hand side spend, or we call it own and loan. Because if you're saving it, I mean, if you're buying stuff, right, it's stuff that you own. So we call it own on the left-hand side. And then on the other side, it's loaning. You're loaning it to them, right? Mm-hmm. You're loaning. So in this case, you're loaning to the bank for a small percentage. So we start off with a savings and a checking account. And then we do a money market account. And then you get a little more for a money market account. Mm-hmm. And then we have what's called CDs. You guys know what a CD is, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, explain it.
I don't mean a CD-ROM. Don't mean CD-ROM. Certificate of deposits, right? Uh-huh. And that's a little bit more. And so you can get a 3-month CD for, like let's say $500, and your interest rate is going to be very small. On the other hand, if you're giving them a $100,000 CD for 5 years or 10 years, you're going to have more. That's called money leverage. And so now you have more money and you get a better rate for that kind of thing. Okay. And so these are things that they're fixed costs, basically. You're going to get your principal back and a little bit of money at the fixed cost rate, 6% or 3% or wherever they have it going at that time. Okay. And then you have what's called a bond. Do either one of you know what a bond is?
I do, but explain it for the audience.
So a bond, there's 3 types of bonds. There's a municipal bond, a state bond, and a government bond. Mm-hmm. And all a bond really is just a loan. It's a loan to the government. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. or it's a loan to a city or a state or local government. That's a municipal bond. And so if you're loaning it to the government, and this is old school stuff from years ago, because I don't know what the current rates are or anything, but let's say it's 5.5% for the government bond, okay? Mm-hmm. Let's say you're getting 5.5%. And a corporate bond will pay you 6%. So if that's the case, why does everybody just get corporate bonds in the first place then?
Right?
Why don't they? Well, there could be a couple different reasons. Number one, they feel that if you're loaning to the government, it's safer. We never use that word safer, guaranteed. But it's safer because the government, hey, if they're in trouble, we're all screwed anyway. So right. So they feel it's safer. The other reason would be like maybe your great-grandparents or your grandparents, something like that, because they're patriotic and they want to support the United States, and so they're going to buy bonds from the U.S., that kind of thing. But the reality of it is that corporate bonds are usually good, if they're good corporate bonds anyway, is they're going to be insured. And so they're fine. So I always say, if that comes out down to that, go ahead and get the corporate bonds. But I will say this, lacking the knowledge I knew at the time, I'd been in the military for a while. I was enlisted. I was an officer in military intelligence. And
Thanks for sharing.
when I had the Golden Corral, I had no idea what to invest in. Like I said, I always thought that someday when I learn enough or read enough, read Money Magazine or mutual funds or something like that, that I would figure it out and I would know. Because as it stood, if I went to a stockbroker now at that age and not knowing anything, they'd see I have a double degree in business, I have my own business, everything. They thought I was thinking they would think, oh, this guy must know everything. And then when they find out I don't know anything, they're like, then they could take advantage of me. So I figured they would.
Yeah.
So I thought one day when I figure it all out, then I'll go see a stockbroker. But and the bottom line is, like I said, I had 4 kids that were 5 and under, and so every two weeks I would buy savings bonds because I was in the Army. And that's what they taught us, savings bonds.
Okay.
And I would buy these savings bonds that took 18 years to mature, and then they double.
Ooh,
They double in
Wow.
18 years.
wow.
So you buy a $50 bond, and you put in $25 and you get $50 back. And, so that's what I did. I did the best I could at the time. And I did that with all my kids and my wife every 2 weeks. Well, what did I know about that stuff, And then you learn as you go along. You find out some of these things maybe are not the greatest investments, but again, they're the best you can do at that time. So what happened was, that's how I bought the bonds there. Now, then the other thing is municipal bonds. The third thing is municipal bonds. We talked about that. That's a city, state, or local bond. And what happens with that is that might only be paying 4.5%. So you say, okay, why would anybody get a municipal bond then, right? Well, because they're tax-free. So let's look at this for a minute. Let's get a corporate bond at 6% as an example. Let's say $10,000, 6%. And that's $6,000 right over the 10-year period, or $600 a year, right? A municipal bond only pays $450. But if you're in the 30% tax bracket, as an example, with the 6%, that's $180 you're paying on that 600. So you're netting 420. See?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, with a municipal bond, it's only paying 4.5, which is $450, but it's still $30 more than the corporate bond because it's tax free. See? So that's why that would be an argument for why do you see a stockbroker? It's like you don't go to your neighbor and say, "Hey, fix my teeth." Go to a dentist, right?
Right.
Kids get hurt. You don't go to the neighbor and say, "Hey, help me fix them." You go to the doctor. Well, it's the same thing. Why do you go to the stockbroker? For that kind of reason.
Dan, you mentioned something earlier, how you thought that, you should do all of these things and then I'll be ready and things like that. That is very common with most people. They figure that they can prepare and this will be the best time. So tell us some of the main questions that they may have. When is the best time for me to start investing?
Today. Always today.
Always.
It doesn't matter how old or how young. It's never too late. It's never too early. You start today. I would always try to tell people, put $25 a paycheck away, $50 a month, right?
Okay.
Oh, I can't afford it. But yet they're smoking cigarettes, spending $250 a month on cigarettes, or they're drinking on the weekends, spending $50 a crack at that, or they're going out to eat 10 times a week, for heaven's sakes, because their priorities are all screwed up. I say, just put away a little bit, because the power of compound interest is astronomical. I mean, that's what the crazy thing is. I wish I had some facts to show you. I don't have anything handy with me right now, but you can probably Google anything or do the kind of comparison there at compounded interest. It's like the guy that starts and only does it for 10 years when he's 25 years old to 35 is going to make more money than the guy who starts putting it in when he's 45 and he does it for 25 years because of the power of compound interest.
That time could be either your enemy or your friend, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
And so if they have one of the most common questions that they ask as well, should I pick my own stocks? What do you say to that?
Well, that's a really good question. And then let me answer that in just a moment, if you don't mind. I'm going to go back just for a second. I'm going to finish the one last thing on the loan. What's that?
Don't forget to go back to that
question. I won't. So the one last thing on the loan thing is what's called a fixed annuity. And that's where you have a rate, again, that's a fixed rate, and you put it in a certain amount, and you get that fixed annuity with 5% or whatever it's going to be. So that's the fixed stuff. So that there is what we would call, I guess, safer in that respect, because you're going to get your principal back, and you're going to get a little bit of interest or make some money on it. And, like I say, $10,000 at a simple interest rate, is going to be $6,000 at 6% over a 10-year period. But if you took that same, so let's just hold on that for a second now. Now, what are some investments that you can own? We talked about loan stuff. That's all loaning stuff. Now, what are a couple investments you can own? What do you think, Darnold?
A house, stocks.
A house? Okay, yeah. And we'll just call that real estate because it could be land, property. Okay. So we have real estate. What else?
Cars, valuables.
Cars. Okay. Well, an investment is really something that would appreciate over time, not depreciate. A car would usually depreciate, but I know what you meant.
Yeah.
Well,
You were talking about classic antique cars, weren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. The antique
Yeah.
cars.
So you're talking about,
cars.
yeah, and those would. And the same thing with furs, diamonds, jewelry, stamps, coins, art, anything like that. Depending upon market value at the time, it could go up or down depending upon the market value. So you're correct. I have about 1 million sports cards, so 30,000 Michael Jordan cards. So at different times they go up and down. So that is that. So that's another investment. I just put actually for that there. That's just I put other because it's just so many different things like that. And then the last thing. So we have real estate, other, and what's the last thing? It starts with an S and ends with an S. What?
Stocks.
Very good. So what is a stock? In simplistic terms, what is a stock?
You have partial ownership of a company.
Absolutely. So I used to tell my kids all the time to drive by Office Max or Home Depot or something like that. Oh, we own part of that. We own the toilet paper in the bathroom. So yeah. So that's what you can do. You can be a part owner of Disney. Now, there's 40 other billion owners out there, but you're part owner of Disney, okay? Yeah. So you have one share, it's $100, you're part owner of Disney. And so if we were to take, and I can't give you real examples today because I don't know, but you take like $10,000, we said, and put it in a 6% CD or something, it's going to be $16,000 in 10 years. What do you think $10,000 in a company like Pepsi would have grown to be from 1992 to 2002. What do you think that would grow to be roughly?
A lot.
Well,
what would you hope it to be?
8 to 12% growth.
What would you hope it to be?
Year compounding, right?
So yeah. So in 10 years, what do you think that $10,000 would grow to be?
Probably 100,000.
That's a pretty substantial amount, isn't it? 10 times
We're
in
hopeful.
10 years. But you know what, Darnold? You're pretty close. It was something to like $83,733, something like that. So you were pretty close. It was 23.7 return every single year for 10 years.
Nice. Can you go back and buy some Pepsi stock?
Yeah.
You take things like Procter & Gamble, Colgate Palmolive, 116,000, 132,000. I mean, McDonald's, all these things. Back in the day, McDonald's was opening a new restaurant somewhere in the world every 3 hours or 4 hours.
Yeah, wow.
Really? So when we talk about stocks, we're talking about blue chip stocks. We're talking good quality, secure stocks. Like, are we really worried about McDonald's? Probably not. Are we worried about Disney? Are you kidding? They got movies, they got theme parks, they got so much stuff going on. I'm not worried about them going bankrupt anytime soon. So when you buy a stock, yes, if you bought a stock for $100, you could lose all $100 if it, the company went bankrupt, So, but on average, the stocks always return better than anything else. Nice. So let's say now you have $1,000 and say, Dan, I have $1,000. I want to buy, I want to buy some Pepsi. I say, well, that's a good idea, but it's not a good idea for you. You say, well, what are you talking about? You just get telling me how great Pepsi did. Well, because the fact it's only $1,000. So what if the CEO of Pepsi dies and the new CEO comes up with like new Pepsi, like new Coke did years ago?
Oh, wow. I remember that.
Yes.
That flopped.
So it goes from $1,000 to $600, and now your stock plummeted 40%, and you're all mad upset, right? So what's a better idea? Diversification. So how about we buy Pepsi, put a third in Pepsi, a third in McDonald's, and a third in Walmart or something like that. Now we spread it out. Maybe Pepsi's going down, maybe Walmart's going up a little bit, maybe Pepsi's going up a lot. You know what I mean? So diversification. So you say, okay, great. I'll do each one of those 3 stocks. Well, again, it's a good idea, but it's not a good idea for you, maybe, because you have to pay commission on those stocks, and then your break-even points more, and this, so it becomes challenging. So let's talk about a mutual fund. What's a mutual fund? Michelle, do you know? Put you on the spot.
We're in class now. I was trying to, we're talking about diversification. I had questions on that, and he jumped the gun. Yeah, because that's one of the concerns that that I was, somebody wanted me to ask about the diversification, right?
Mhm.
And so you touched on that, and I'm like, okay, great, he's on that, right? So that was the thing, is that the diversification question came up, and they wanted to know what percentage, when it comes to diversification, should they invest in a stock or bond and everything. And so you were talking about that, and I'm trying to make certain I get their question
Right.
in.
So a mutual fund is a combination of stocks, anywhere from 50 to 500 stocks combined. So now you spread out your risk a lot. See, it's a lot less volatile now. It doesn't have that huge fluctuations up and down everything as much. And so maybe, maybe 30 of them are tanking, maybe 20 of them are status quo, and the other 50 are going up. Now you spread out the balance a lot. So that is diversification. So when you're talking about diversification, though, overall, you may have some bonds in it, you might have some stocks in it, you might have some land, real estate, things like that. So that's your overall big picture investing thing. But back on the owning thing is the basically the stocks and that kind of stuff. So now we see that. But there are so many mutual funds out there. There are way more mutual funds than there are stocks or bonds or anything, even combined. Because you can get specific ones, you can get utility ones, you can get, high technology ones, you can get, medical stuff. I mean, you can get inside your mutual fund. Think of it like an umbrella. You can have stocks, you can have bonds, you can have CDs, you can have all kinds of stuff in a mutual fund itself.
Yeah.
So it's just one big umbrella, and it depends on, again, what your goal is, what you're trying to do. You've talked about this before. I've listened to some of your guys' programs, and so you guys have talked about what your time horizon is, and your risk tolerance. Time horizon is how long do you want to invest it for, and how risky are you going to allow yourself to be? Are you like me? I'm a very assertive, aggressive guy. Other people might be very, very conservative, like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to spend anything. So that just depends on that there. So now we basically have two sides. We have what you can own and what you can loan out to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we see the loan has a great higher return, but also has a higher amount of risk involved. So that's your trade-off there. And so when you're talking about diversification, but I try and answer a question before it gets asked, is so people will say, well, okay, so how much do I invest in the high risk stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good question, especially if they're considering it in a retirement account.
Oh.
So I'll give you a real life example of me. When I had Golden Corral, I had no idea. When I was 30 years old, they started an IRA for us, a 401k.
Okay.
And they said, what do you guys want to invest in? You can go conservative, moderate, or aggressive. Well, I have no idea. I'm a restaurant guy. What do I know about this stuff? So I called my buddy in El Paso. I said, hey, the guy who owns a Golden Corral there. I said, what are you investing in? He said, I don't know. So I called the guy from New Mexico. I said, hey, what are you investing in? He says, I don't know. Call my buddy in Albuquerque. I don't know. Call the guy in Tucson. Nobody knows. I called 7 guys. Nobody knows because we're restaurant guys. We don't know about this.
Wow.
But remember, I'm a pretty assertive guy. So I decided to go 20% conservative, 30% moderate, and 50% aggressive. I felt that was a good mixture, especially for me because I was pretty assertive.
Okay.
Knowing what I know now, because first of all, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm 30 years old. I'm not touching stuff for 30 years. So I want at least half of it to be aggressive. Well, if I were to do it over again at 30 years old, I would do like 5% moderate and 95% aggressive. I'm not touching for 30 years. What do I care about the volatility, whether it goes up or down? No, I just want to go up, up, up.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So that's that's how that works out on that. And so an IRA, just to piggyback this thing, I didn't know what an IRA was either. I had a guy he was my accountant guy for a couple of years when I started. He did my taxes for me. So it's like my 3rd year, 4th year, and I got the mail. It was like 1 o'clock, and the run fresh had been over. So I sat there and looked at the mail. I'm eating lunch, and I see this thing about an IRA, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. I could save, I don't remember what it was, like at least like $1,600 or something like that, or $2,000 if I open an IRA. And I'm like, why didn't my insurance my tax guy tell me about this?
Tell you that, right?
Right? I mean, for heaven's sakes, he knows I have the money. All I did was save it. I never spent anything. I was like, So why wouldn't he tell me? So I fired the guy, and I did my own taxes that year.
Like, you're out.
And what happened was on April 15th, remember I told you if you open an IRA, you can save this money. So I went and opened an IRA for myself, my wife, and I went to the bank. And I said, I want to open an IRA. They said, you bet you can. So I was getting about 2.5% interest on my bank account time. That's how old I am. So they told me I was going to get 5% on this IRA. And I'm like, are you kidding? I'm going from 2.5% to 5%, and I'm saving like $1,700 or whatever it was. I thought I died and went to heaven. So I thought I was doing great. So the next year, I opened another IRA at another bank. Why? Because diversification, right? So I go to another bank, and I do a third one the third year. Well, guess what? I didn't know until much later when I became a stockbroker that I wasn't diversifying anything except the different banks, which meant I was paying a yearly fee at 3 different banks.
Yeah.
Because my IRA, again, you got to think of an IRA like a big umbrella. I thought the IRA was the investment. It's not an investment, it's just the house. That's all it is, what you put your investment in.
Yeah.
I was invested in CDs. CDs at 5% CD.
Wow.
I had no idea. I could have put that in mutual funds that were returning like minimum 12% at the time. I was like, oh my goodness. So you live and learn. You know, when you do this stuff, you just learn. And then I put them all into one account, obviously, because I was paying 3 different fees each year, so I didn't need to do that. So anyway, that's kind of a little overview of the major things. A stock is basically an ownership of a company. A bond is money you're loaning to a corporate bond, government, or a state or municipal, you know. And then an IRA is a retirement account that you're putting investments into. And when you talk about 401k or traditional IRA or Roth IRA, things like that, those are all retirement vehicles. So it doesn't matter. A 403b is what hospitals, it's the same thing as a 401k, it's just a different number, different letter, because that's what nonprofit organizations use, like hospitals and schools and things like that. So if you're a teacher, you're getting a 403b because you don't have a 401k, which would be in the commercial sector. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Okay, yeah, so that was
good information.
Significant overview that you gave us, Dan. And so making those errors, a lot of us do that. A lot of us make the errors. We're uncertain, we don't know. And sometimes when you're feeling that, you just don't do anything. And that's that's very common. And so what I am really wanting to ask, some people have not done anything. They're in their 50s, they have the 401k, they don't have a clue or whatever. Please give them confidence that all is not lost. Because, again, this is when time is your enemy, when you're waiting so long and you have the means, but you don't know what to do with them. Please give them some solace that they're, all is not lost, that they can still, hop on this train. Right, Dan?
Well, that's an excellent point. That's excellent. And I'll give you a little analogy with that. When I was 50, my kids and my wife always took vitamins. I never took vitamins. Never ever took vitamins in my life. When I turned 50, I thought I should start taking vitamins. But I have no idea what vitamins it take. There's billions out there, right?
That's true.
Right.
So it's the same thing with investing, right? There's a billion different ways you can invest. So you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? And you're looking for that absolute. What's the best? What's the absolute? You know what? Just get started. Then you can improve upon it.
Sounds like a
right?
theme.
So that's what I did. I was like, I have no idea. I'm just gonna go buy generic Walmart multivitamins, and then I'll figure out as I go along. I'll change. It's better to take something than nothing at all.
Yeah.
So it's better to even if you're not even investing it, you're better off putting $25 in a bank account that you can't touch at least. Even if it's just something, just get started. For younger people, I tell them put $5 a week away. That's okay. Just get started with something, whatever it takes to get to a point where you start getting confidence and you build the habit up. It's habit. That's all it is. And then you start doing $10 and and at the end of the year, if you're doing $5 a month, let's say, well, that's what, $60 in your account. You're like, hey, that's $60. If you're a 16-year-old kid, you're thinking that's pretty cool. Well, next year I'm going to do $10 a month, and then you have 120. Now you got 180 total after 2 years, and it just starts snowballing up like that. So yes, older people too, same thing. I talk to people all the time in their 40s and 50s that would say, man, I wish I had done this when I was in my 20s, which
Right.
everybody says. And I say, can I just take you with me when I go talk to the 20-year-olds? Because when you're 20, you're not thinking about
We don't think
retirement or
about
anything
that.
like that. All
Right.
you want to do is just be able to, spend money and have a good time,
Yeah.
enjoy
Yeah.
things that you have now. 20-year-olds are buying vehicles that are 35, 40,000, $50,000, right? And
That's
why are they doing it? And they just start working at McDonald's or something, right? Why are they doing it? Because their parents have that, and but they don't understand. Their parents been doing that for 30 years.
Yeah.
They didn't just
Right.
get there. So you definitely got to start at any time and whatever amount you have to. I don't care if it's $1 a day. Put a buck a day in a jar. Just get in the habit of doing it, and then you can expound on that habit and get better and more creative and do other things as you learn and talk to other people, like listening to a show like this. You start saying, but the biggest thing I always found with people was the fear of the unknown. Because like
Yeah.
me, I said I didn't know, so I wouldn't talk to a stockbroker because I didn't want to get taken advantage of.
Right.
So I wouldn't do anything. Well, you know what? You go out and find out, ask questions. It doesn't matter. Just start going somewhere at all. Another little thing I
Well,
want to point was I used to, when I had the restaurant, I collected these old bills. I did the drawers the other night, and so I might find a $10 bill from 1952 or something like that, whatever. So I'd exchange these bills, and so I had about $4,500 in a safety deposit box. When I became a stockbroker, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not getting a penny on any of this stuff. 4,500 bucks, think they're doing nothing, right? If I put
Right.
that in a mutual fund, just got 20% return, which was not unusual back in the day. That are you kidding? That would be a huge difference, right?
Absolutely.
So I went to a broker guy that a coin guy, whatever they call him, to have him take a look at all this stuff. And I had a few like 5 or 6 $1 bills. He said worth $2, and then I had a $10 bill from Big Springs, Texas, that was worth $150. He said, but I had to find a buyer, so he gave me $100 for it. Everything
What?
else I knew he wasn't chingering me on because he gave them back to me. Bills from 1945 or whatever. They were not in great condition. But I had
yeah.
$4,500 basically sitting there making no interest at all. When I could have
Well,
put that
Dan,
even in a bank account.
Dan, you have definitely made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside because you have given hope to those that are 40, 50, and they have not started. So your advice is not hard to do. So thank you very much for giving so many people that hope. Now, let me ask you this question. Where would you tell people to get good financial advice from? How could they find good advice? Where would you tell them to look, Dan?
Well, with the with the
And
internet
make
and
it quick. Give
everything,
me a quick answer.
there's so many places. But I would go to a reliable brokerage firm and talk to the guys there, Merrill
Wrong
Lynch,
answer,
Dean
Dan.
Witter. So,
Wrong answer. You're supposed to tell them to come and watch Thin Lit live.
There you go.
well, I'm not
Well, go
always
ahead.
right. So yeah, I would just ask friends and family, who are you seeing? What are you doing?
Hmm.
It doesn't mean they're gonna give you the right answers all the time, but just take the best answers and make it, just apply it to yourself best you can and then keep working on it.
Yeah,
Just be careful. Don't put large amount of money in something until you know what you're doing.
exactly.
Absolutely.
It's okay
Cool.
to test waters. It's fine.
Well, we'll open it up to the audience. So if you're watching and you have a question, feel free to type your question in the chat. And then also, while they're doing that, how can people get a hold of you, Dan, if they have more questions?
Well, they can send me a text anytime they want. If they want to do that, I'm happy to talk to anybody. I don't charge anything to give people bad advice, so I'm
Did he say
kidding.
bad advice?
He's
I'm
joking.
kidding. My number is 928-322-2391. If you have a specific question or something, you can certainly text me and ask me a question. I'll be happy to do my best to answer it. And I'm going to tell you, I've been doing it for a few years, so I might not know the answer, and I'll tell you the truth. If I don't know it, I'll tell you I don't know. But if I do know,
That's
I'll tell
bold.
you something. I can point you in right direction a lot of times. So
Cool.
Also, this has been really good.
Absolutely.
Really, really good. Dan, we really appreciate you. So very insightful.
Yes.
thank you.
I wish we had like 2 hours with
I
you
know.
and glean from your wisdom because you have a lot of wisdom. We appreciate you for being on.
Well, like I said, I want to be able to explain to a 10-year-old, and so it's really simplistic because it's just that fear. People are so afraid, and I get it. I know. I was the same way.
Understandable. Cool. Well, we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. and stick around, and we'll do our debrief afterwards. But
Yeah, don't leave, Dan.
Well, I am in Vegas, guys. So hey,
Oh, come on.
They're
without
calling
us,
me.
without us, where was
Rub
our
it in,
invite?
why don't
Come
you?
on. So,
See what
well,
happens
thank
if you
Dan.
retire?
Yeah. Sit tight. We'll be right back. Hold on, okay?
All right.
Don't leave.
Sounds good.
All right. So cool. That was awesome.
Yeah, it really was. I love the T-chart thing,
Mhm.
the pros and cons kind of thing.
Absolutely.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And I like how he shared the basics of all the different types of investment vehicles,
Right.
from CDs to municipal bonds to
Yes, the
government
mutual,
bonds, and
mutual
the
funds,
fact
all of
that
that.
you
Yeah,
could get taxed on one bond and not the other bond. Like,
exactly.
that's news to me.
Wow. So I tell you what. Also, again, when people think about all this stuff, it's just so confusing
Overwhelming.
and overwhelming and everything. And then
For
you
sure.
think, oh my goodness, I made a mistake. I haven't done anything or whatever. So yeah, but the solution is very simple. Just start. Just start. So
It seems like a theme from last week too.
exactly.
That's exactly what she said.
Yeah,
Just get
absolutely.
started.
So the thing is that I think that and especially people that you're not struggling to start, because that means the struggle is that you don't have money to start. So those of you that have the money and you just didn't know what to do with it, start. Just say, hey, I can do $50 a week. I can do, if you got the money, don't you put away $5. If you got the money, go on and do something bigger than that, all right? Because you can actually start without feeling the pain.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I heard this story where this guy, he only made $40,000 total. Like, that was his whole salary, his whole career.
Yeah.
And he ended up a multimillionaire because all he did was take a certain percentage.
Yeah.
And sock it away.
And I heard this, years and years ago when I was, young, that it's not how much money you make, it's what you do with that money. Right?
Absolutely.
And you hear stories a lot of people dying millionaires. You never knew that they were rich.
Absolutely.
They never looked the part. They never did, but they just saved that money, and now they left the legacy for their families.
That's true.
So
yep. So that's where it's at.
Great
so
lesson to learn.
That's why we have this show.
Yeah.
So we can encourage you guys to be that person.
Yes,
and so
indeed.
Just
and
get
it's
started.
Never too late. It's never too late.
Not at all. No matter what your age.
There's hope.
So we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you. We had an amazing guest, Dan Ziccarelli.
Yes.
And so definitely stay tuned for next week, because we have another dynamic speaker. She's going to be phenomenal. So you definitely want to tune in to next week. So, but we appreciate you guys for being on and staying and getting